Let's make some lemon polenta pistachio macarons. These are inspired by a tea cake I saw in London when I was in the Ottolenghi shop, and it is just such a delightful dessert, and it made an amazing macaron. So I'm really excited for you to give this a try as well. To start off with, I'm doing a really basic macaron shell here, and because I wanted to roll the buttercream edge in pistachios, I am just going for a strictly regular almond macaron shell, French method as always. I'm adding in some lemon gel food colorant, though of course if you wanted to make this either a pistachio macaron shell and go in that direction, attach the pistachios onto the shell, or if you want to lean into the polenta or corn, you could add some cornmeal into the dry ingredients by swapping out some of the almond flour if you wanted to go into that direction as well. But as I mentioned, I just have a really basic macaron shell here, so really stiff French meringue, folded in my dry ingredients, macaronage to a ribbon stage, and then I'm going to pipe my macaron shells. I am also sticking with a really basic circle macaron shell here because I have a cake element in here, so it's a bit easier to add that in when you have a basic macaron shape. And then I want all of the decoration to come from the pistachios that I'm using almost as if it's a sprinkle around the outside edge of the buttercream. So for me, just a basic circle shell here. So if you wanted to add any other decoration or if you want to go in a shaped shell direction, absolutely go for it. After piping these macarons, I'll tap my tray, get them into my oven, bake them off, and then we will be ready to move into the polenta cake and the buttercream. So this is a lemon polenta cake. It is really dense and so lovely, and all of the lemon juice and lemon zest just really brightens it up and makes this the perfect cake for spring. So I have all my ingredients here, and before I get to actually making the cake, I am first going to combine my wet ingredients, egg, I have the buttermilk vanilla paste, the lemon juice, and I'm just going to give that a really good whisk, and then I will separately combine the dry ingredients. The only things that I'm not adding into one of these two bowls here is going to be the sugar and the lemon zest. Whenever you are working with something that has a lemon zest or an herb in it, and it is something sweet so it has some sugar, it's a really good idea to combine the zest or whatever other flavor and the sugar and really mix them well before you continue on to the rest of the baking process. What this is going to do is it's going to allow the sugar to absorb all of the oils and flavors from the zest, and that is going to really enhance the zest flavor throughout the cake. Whereas if you miss this step, if you toss in the zest at the end or something like that, you might end up with the flavor being a bit more muted because the zest would only provide flavor kind of where it is throughout the cake. After the zest and sugar are completely combined, I'm adding in my butter and I'm mixing that really well until it is really nice. Everything's combined, it's looking softer and fluffier. Then I'll just alternate in the dry and wet ingredients in about 2 additions each. This is a cake that we don't want to over mix, but it comes together really quickly, so there really isn't too much of a risk. If you're keeping your eye on it, it's going to go really fast. Just stop mixing as soon as each addition is incorporated. I am using a 1/8 sheet pan lined with some parchment paper to bake this up on. I really like this because it provides me the perfect height for cake circles that I want to have for my macarons. So if you wanted to bake this in any other container, that's perfectly fine. You can also slice a cake if it ends up being a bit thicker. You can slice it down to get the perfect size for the inside of your macarons. So just make sure whatever you're doing, it has a nice smooth surface so it bakes really evenly. Get it into the oven. I'll bake that until it is a nice golden brown on top. I like to make the cake the day before so I can refrigerate it overnight, and that is going to make sure it's completely cooled and sturdy so we can easily put it into our macarons later. For the buttercream, 2 elements I don't use so often in my macarons. I have some cornmeal here, though you could use a corn flour if you don't want as much texture. And then I also have some freeze-dried corn. These 2 elements are going to give the macarons this really rich, like sweet, savory flavor. It's just incredible. This macaron, again, perfect for spring and really great for those folks who don't love a really super sweet macaron. So this is more of a style of an ermine buttercream. So I have the powdered freeze-dried corn and the cornmeal that I'm adding in some sugar in a small saucepan on my stove. Once that's completely combined, I'm going to add in all of the liquids and then just cook this, whisking continuously until it comes to a boil. It's going to thicken up quite a bit. It's going to start looking, because of the cornmeal in here, whereas usually when you make an ermine style buttercream, it looks a bit more like pudding or pastry cream. This is going to look a little bit more like polenta or oatmeal or something like that because of the texture we have from the corn. Once this comes to a boil, remove it from the heat and transfer it into a new container. Now, I am keeping all of my lemon flavor in the cake, but if you wanted to add some lemon flavor into the buttercream as well, you could add some lemon zest into this mixture. I do recommend adding it off the heat or to the butter later as we are creating the buttercream, just to keep the brightest flavor possible. If you add it in at this stage before the mixture comes to a boil, you could alter the lemon flavor a bit. After the corn mixture has cooled down to about 30 degrees Celsius, you can use an ice bath or stick it in your refrigerator. Then we'll whip up the buttercream. So first start by just whipping the butter until it looks really light and fluffy. It should become pale in color and basically look like it's already a buttercream. Then add in that cooled, just slightly warm corn mixture in several additions. While it wouldn't be the end of the world if you added it all in at once, I really like to go a little bit slower just to make sure it incorporates really seamlessly. And if you're stopping to check flavor, texture, consistency, you can adjust to your personal preference. So while I added in 100% of the corn mixture in the recipe, if you want to add in a little bit less to suit your own personal preference, again, completely okay, which is just another reason why it's a wise idea to go a little bit slower with that addition. After everything is incorporated, make sure to taste test it. So again, if you wanted to add in more vanilla, more freeze-dried corn powder, some lemon zest, anything else, now would be the time before you switch over to a paddle attachment and mix on a low speed for several minutes. Before filling the macarons, the last 2 things I'm going to do. First, I am taking a small cookie cutter, or you could use a large piping tip, and I'm cutting out circles of the completely cold polenta lemon cake. And then I also am just pulverizing some pistachios. You could chop them by hand as well, just to get a bowl full of chopped pistachios. There's nothing else in here. It's 100% pistachios. Now we are finally ready to fill these macarons. Whenever I have a secondary filling that is firm, like a cake or a cookie dough, my preference is to start with that filling just to make sure I have it centered and it fits easily and everything works out, and I can adjust the amount of buttercream to suit the height of that filling. So first I placed a circle of the lemon polenta cake in the center of each macaron. Then I'm going around with the polenta buttercream, just one big ring. I usually use an 804 or maybe even an 805 piping tip just to make sure I am close to the top edge of the piece of cake. Otherwise, if you have a really thin layer of buttercream, the macaron shells might not actually attach to each other if the top shell can't reach the buttercream. So do be a little bit careful of that as you are piping the buttercream and choosing the height of your cake pieces. Now, usually at this point in the process, all you have to do is sandwich your macs, get them into your refrigerator to mature or your freezer for storage. However, if you want to have the final touch of the pistachios, first, of course, sandwich your macarons like always. But because we want the pistachios to stick to the macarons, it needs to stick to the buttercream, we need the buttercream to be room temperature. If you refrigerate or freeze these first, you will have to completely let them come to room temperature again before you can roll them in pistachios, which would be such a hassle. So please just do this step right away. All you need to do is simply roll the macaron with the buttercream side facing into the bowl, around and around, pressing gently just to pick up the pistachio crumbs until the entire thing is coated. That is all. It is such a fun look. I think it's a really fun, different appearance. Sometimes people do this with sprinkles, which is pretty cute, but that doesn't add a lot of extra flavor, and the texture that is there is sometimes kind of crunchy in a sugary way. But by rolling the macaron in the pistachio, we get color, we get flavor, we get texture. There's this nice crunch on the outside. They look a little bit different from normal macarons, but at the same time, they are very obviously normal macarons. So we just have so many benefits of adding the chopped pistachios around the edge. After that's done, you can finally let them mature in your refrigerator at least 24 hours or get them into an airtight container in your freezer to store longer. Thank you so much for being here and checking out this video tutorial. I hope you love this recipe. Again, I was inspired by a cake that I saw in London, and I am so happy it turned into such a successful and delicious macaron. I cannot wait to hear what you think when you give it a try, and I'm also really excited to see you here again next week for another very delicious tutorial. Until then, thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next video. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!